I hadn't been to church in a long time. Before my divorce, it was usually easier for me to stay home on Sundays than to try to get my husband to go to church. I sat alone in an empty pew, and several parishioners came up to me and told me how nice it was to see me. They didn't mention my divorce. It lifted my spirits a little. But that good mood disappeared when I saw my younger sister Regina entering the church with her children. She was with a man I didn't know. I only glanced at them because I felt a pang of jealousy that she had a man, and I didn't. Then I remembered what she had written to me in her last letter. Regina had asked if I minded if she dated my ex-husband. I think I replied that I didn't care who she dated, listed many of my ex's faults, and warned her about him. In fact, I really didn't want her to date him. In a way, he was still mine, even though we were divorced. She thanked me and quickly hung up. The man she was with was in good shape, clean-shaven, wearing a suit and tie with a smile on his face. Her two children from her previous marriage clung to him like lifelines. Several people greeted them with smiles and laughter. It was obvious that they were well-known and loved. The longer I looked at this man, the more I suspected that it could be my ex-husband Owen, having cleaned himself up. During the greeting neighbors part of the church service, the man with Regina deliberately approached me. By the time he reached me, I was certain it was Owen, looking better and healthier than I had ever seen him. "Pamela, you look good. Are you going to be coming here again?" "Probably. Owen, I'm sorry if this is too harsh, but what are you doing here? When we were married, you made it clear that the only time you would ever go to church was when we got married and when you died." He laughed. "I'm sorry I let you down, Pam, but I'm not dead. In fact, I've never felt more alive. Seriously, I've changed, Pam. Thanks to you and especially your sister. Long story short, I really listened when you told me about all the things about me that made you want to divorce me. I was depressed until Regina called me and we started dating. She supported me while I struggled to change myself, and believe me, it was a tough struggle. Oh, I have to get back to my seat. Would you like to have lunch with us after the service?" I hesitated. "Well, Are you sure?" "Of course. Unless you're still mad at me for how I treated you. I'll understand if you don't want to." "Okay, I'll go, but only if Regina doesn't mind." "I know she doesn't mind. She's mentioned several times that we should call you and invite you over. Besides, your niece and nephew keep asking when they'll see Aunt Pam again. I'll meet you at the entrance after the service." I wasn't known as an avid listener of sermons, but that day, I couldn't repeat a single word the priest said. I was lost in memories of how Owen and I got married and what could have happened to my ex-husband to make him change so drastically. Before the service was over, I began to wonder if my ex-husband had really changed or if he was pretending to get into my sister's pants. I was leaning toward the latter. My curiosity got the better of my fear. After church, they talked to me, and we met at Brinkley's Diner for lunch. The place was known for its Sunday buffet. We got a table for 5. After hugging me, the kids ran to the buffet and filled their plates. I went next and tried to take enough to justify the price. I wasn't really hungry, my stomach was really hurting, and my head wasn't feeling great either. When we all returned to the table, I was shocked when Owen asked everyone to join hands while he prayed. I had to bend down and roll my eyes. This new and improved Owen had just prayed before a meal. In the 7 years of our marriage, my old, annoying Owen had never prayed for anything except for Kentucky to win a football game, and certainly not before a meal. I waited for him to be struck by lightning for his blasphemy. I sat silently. My sister's family was engaged in lively, friendly conversation. I was caught up in my niece and nephew's stories about their successes in school and on the football field. Both Owen and Regina were proud of them, and rightly so. I wanted children like them. I wanted to die right there and then. Owen asked me how I was doing after the divorce. I couldn't believe he asked me that with his wife and children there. Wasn't he afraid I would tell him the truth? But maybe he didn't know the truth. Maybe he believed I wouldn't tell him the truth because it would make him and me look bad. I just lied and said nothing new had happened and that I wasn't seeing anyone. Why would I bring up that part of my miserable life? Maybe I hoped he wouldn't interpret my answer to mean that I was sitting there pining for the few good days we had together, which would have been closer to the truth. The children asked if they could have 2 desserts, and Regina agreed after Owen stood up for them. Owen took the opportunity to go to the bathroom, leaving me alone with Regina. "Pam, I'm sorry we didn't talk to you after our wedding. You were so bitter toward Owen when I asked you about our relationship that I was afraid you would say something hurtful that would prevent you both from moving on. I have no doubt that you were right in your description of Owen during your marriage. I saw it myself. It took a lot of patience and persistence to help him become who I believe he truly is. Mostly, it took love and support every time he said he couldn't change. In many ways, his transformation came from the love he developed for his children. Owen just adores his kids. But when Owen and I got married, he said he never wanted children. He said that to me at first, too. I decided to test it out since I already had 2 children. It was very important for our relationship to move forward. I talked to his mom without telling him. She said that Owen might say he didn't like the idea of being a father, but deep down he would accept the reality of being a father. A few more times spent together as a threesome convinced him. After Owen and I got married, my ex agreed to give the children to Owen for adoption so he could get rid of the monthly child support payments. Oh, here comes Owen. That was probably the second shock. I hardly spoke for the rest of dinner. Regina spoke up as we were about to leave. "Sis, why don't you come over on Friday night? We can sort things out over a glass of wine. I feel like you still have questions about Owen's change in behavior. I'd like you and Owen to be friends again. He really regrets how he treated you during your marriage." I agreed to come without hesitation. I don't know where I got this masochistic streak. I took one step toward the door before I started to wonder why I had agreed to go. I believed I couldn't bear the thought that my sister had been able to change Owen when I had failed so miserably. I had a lot of questions and curiosity about the new Owen. I also still felt a strong dislike for the old Owen. I wondered if he had really become the person I saw on Sunday. If so, my feelings for him would be shaken. You could say that the door to my past had been torn off its hinges. I was in complete turmoil all week, even more so than before. I arrived at their house around 8 p.m. on Friday. As preparation, I drank half a bottle of Pepto-Bismol to settle my stomach. 4 of them were just finishing a game of Uno at the kitchen table. Little Betsy was teasing her brother Jameson that she had beaten him. I assumed that meant, "Nanny, nanny, boo-boo." Jameson demanded a rematch. Regina put an end to the argument. "Go to the bathroom and brush your teeth. Maybe Aunt Pam will read you a bedtime story if you go quickly and don't argue." I was set up. I saw the gleam in their eyes and gave in. "I'm not sure you want me to read to you. You might get scared." It worked. They begged and pleaded with me to read to them. Of course, I agreed. We sat on Betsy's bed, me in the middle with the kids on either side. I read Where the Wild Things Are, their favorite book. I made all the necessary monster noises and screams. The kids prompted me when I read too slowly. They knew the book by heart. They made me read it 3 times. My voice was hoarse from all the scary sounds. I left the room and kissed them both good night. Behind the door, I cried quietly. The scene I had just left was the one I had once imagined when Owen and I got married. He swore he didn't want this. Now he has it, and I don't. It's not fair. I went downstairs. I joined Owen and Regina in the living room. Owen stood up and poured me a drink. He remembered what I liked. Seeing my eyes, my sister asked, "What's wrong, Pam?" "Oh, Regina, I believe your children have awakened my maternal instincts. If you ever need a babysitter..." I couldn't go on. I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. Of course. Of course. Owen returned with my drink. Okay. Let's start with what happened right before we started our divorce proceedings. You told me how badly I treated you during our marriage. Your list was long. With every new flaw you mentioned, I tuned out more and more. I thought you were exaggerating. I couldn't be that bad. You were probably distracting me from one of your many flaws. I provided most of the financial support for our family. I took care of the finances, the cars, and took out the trash. That should have given me the right not to do the women's work you wanted me to do. You must have thought that you had my attention, respect, care, and love. All of that should have been a given. After all, I married you, didn't I? When you brought up divorce, I was so shocked that I finally started listening to you. I left home and spent days thinking about what you said. After analyzing myself, I came to the conclusion that you were right. If not completely, then at least mostly. I was deeply, deeply ashamed of myself. I decided that I had ruined our marriage for so long that you wouldn't believe me if I promised to change. And who could blame you? In the end, I decided I had to give you a chance to find someone who could give you what you deserve. I signed the divorce papers without even looking at them. I knew you would be fair to me, even though I didn't deserve it. Like many men suffering from depression, I stopped interacting with people. My new friend was a bottle of bourbon, or rather, many bottles of bourbon. Work, drinking, sleeping, and sometimes eating became my life. I lost weight because I hardly ate. At work, I was warned about my appearance, my performance, and the quality of my work. My life was spiraling downward, and I wasn't even trying to stay afloat. Everything changed when Regina called. I almost didn't talk to her because she's your sister. I thought she wanted to add fuel to the fire on your behalf. I remember that call well. Regina, what do you want? I signed the damn divorce papers your sister gave me. Oh, and I'm not calling about the divorce. I'm calling to see how you are. Even though you and my sister are getting divorced, I still care about you. Well, if that's true, you're the only one. I don't even care about myself. I know how you feel. Damn it, you don't. Then I remembered that she had gone through a divorce with a cheating husband and 2 children. I fell silent. Owen, no, I don't mean to say that I know exactly how you feel. I know how much it hurt me when I went through a divorce, and you're hurting in your own way. I was hoping that I could draw on my experience to help you. Okay, divorce expert, share your experience with me. Owen, if your situation is anything like mine, your biggest enemy is yourself. You need to start taking care of yourself and others. Not necessarily Pamela, but others. I was lucky to have my kids. They pulled me out of my depression. I don't have kids. You need to get out of the house and interact with people. Be nice to them. Do things for them. Why? So they'll be nice to you. How am I supposed to be nice? Bribe them? Well, if you have that much money to spend, there are plenty of people who will take it. I was thinking more along the lines of charity. Charity? What kind of charity? Hand out food at the Salvation Army. Help build houses for Habitat for Humanity. Take a divorced woman with children out to dinner. She smiled. Do you know any divorced women with hungry children? Maybe. How about Friday night? What about your sister? She said she didn't mind. Of course, she listed all your faults. And you still want me to ask you out? Yes. Do I have to bring the kids too? Yes, we're a family. I think I can tolerate them for a little while. Pam, I have to admit that the slap was one of the reasons I decided to ask your sister out. When we met at McDonald's, the kids were already at the counter ordering. Regina had already paid for them before I could offer. She said, the offer was to have lunch together, not to pay for our food. You probably would have had to go to an ATM if you wanted to do that. I sat down and ate my meal, believing that what I was eating could be called food, and wondering how Regina could remain so calm in the middle of the storm, with the kids swirling around her. I swore I saw a cow fly by. The children asked dozens of questions, including, "Why aren't you our uncle anymore?" And "Why aren't you and Aunt Pam married anymore?" And, my favorite, "Do you have another woman you play with like our dad?" Regina blushed with embarrassment, but she knew that her children's behavior was an excellent test for her future husband. They seemed so happy and full of life that the noise didn't bother me. Regina and I were dating and just spending time together, sometimes alone, sometimes with the kids. I kept falling back into my old ways, taking her for granted or just being stubborn. Regina responded by loving me even during the tough times. She never gave up. I made mistakes over and over again, but she never gave up. Finally, I realized that this was the woman I wanted and that I would be foolish not to change for her. We got married a few months later. I still make mistakes sometimes, but I usually realize it quickly, apologize to her, and we move on. She asked her ex to let me adopt the children. He wanted to retain partial custody to annoy Regina. When she told him how much money he would save on child support, he finally gave in. "Your niece and nephew are now my children, as if they were born to me." I sat in silence for a long time. My thoughts and emotions were spinning around in my head like passengers on a merry-go-round. I blurted out the first thing that came to mind. "That's not fair." Owen and Regina looked at me in confusion. I continued. I pointed at Owen. "I put up with this man for years. I put up with all his disrespect, his laziness, his arrogance, I can't think. Oh, yes. He didn't want children, and now he has two, and I have none." I got up and ran to the door, crying at the top of my lungs. I sat in my car and cried so hard that I was afraid to drive. Finally, I calmed down a little and drove to my empty house. No one offered me sympathy. No one. A few days later, I apologized to Owen and Regina for my emotional outburst. My sister replied, "No need to apologize. If you want, we need a babysitter on Friday night. The kids are criticizing how we read Where the Wild Things Are. Aunt Pam reads better." "Can I come over early, like tonight?" We laughed. Epilogue. We settled into stable relationships. I finally found a man I really liked, and he sometimes joined me in my fun with Owen and Belinda. I finally came to terms with the fact that our divorce was necessary for Owen to realize that he needed to change. Regina was the person who helped him become who he was meant to be. Although Regina benefited from my sacrifice in the end, it was the best decision for all of us. Oh, I almost forgot. I'm due in 3 months, and my new husband wants more children.